We need to be guided by our
substantial meal is
politicians, and our politicians are giving us different answers to a very simple question about whether a Scotch egg is a substantial meal. And you know, do you have one? Do you have two? Well, it just seems almost absurd. Why don't you just tell us what the rules are and we can abide by them, and then people won't get a £10,000 fine?
Yes, and Kay, I'm telling you what the rules are. The rules are that a substantial meal is a well-established principle in hospitality. People in the hospitality trade know what a substantial meal is because it is a standard way of describing the two different types of hospitality. Those that serve meals and those that don't. And so a starter can be a substantial meal. You can have a Scotch egg as a starter. But I just want to get away from, you know, this sort of the picking at the boundaries, because there's a much, much bigger and more important thing going on, which is everyone has a responsibility to act carefully, not to push at the boundaries of these rules, but to live within these rules until we can get enough people vaccinated that we can lift the rules altogether and we can all get on. That's what we all need to do.
You can push at the boundaries, which is what we do as a nation, and still live within the rules as long as you know what the rules are. Which brings me to my final question. Can you have, wet pubs have to close at the moment, can you have a takeaway delivered to a wet pub, which apparently, this is a serious question, quite a few pubs in central London are planning to do that. They're planning to have McDonald's, other takeaways are available, delivered to the pubs so that their guests can eat those takeaways indoors. Is that allowed?
We've set out very clearly the principles and in law what is and isn't expected. And if you break that law, it's set out really clearly.
Is it breaking the law or not?
It's for the courts. Yes.
Please answer my question, Health Secretary. It's so important to all these people. It's their livelihoods.
It's also the law. And we passed the law in Parliament, and we passed it last night, and it is for the courts to interpret on each individual case. But what I'd say is that people should not only respect the law, absolutely will enforce against these laws.
OK, so this is my question. It's a serious question. I know you've got to go. It's really important. Can I eat a takeaway in a wet pub?
The law was passed last night. If people break that law, then they'll end up in court.
Can I eat a takeaway in a wet pub?
Hey, I'm being absolutely clear with you.
You don't know, do you?
The role of Parliament is to pass the... I know that it's a matter for the courts depending on the individual circumstances of each individual case.
Can you eat a takeaway
and it doesn't matter.
In a wet
it doesn't
pub?
matter. Okay, it doesn't matter how many times you interrupt me. I'm going to tell you what the answer is, and the answer is that the courts interpret the law that's set by Parliament for this country. The law has been set last night. If people break that law, then it's for the courts, based on the individual circumstances, to determine that. But there's a bigger principle at stake, okay?
This is really important. This is people's lives. This is people's lives. This is people's lives. What does the law say about eating a takeaway in a wet pub? Please just answer the question.
The law says that it is okay to have a takeaway, and then it is for the courts to interpret whether that is what is actually, in fact, happening in each individual case. Since you haven't given me an individual case, and since it hasn't happened...
I'll give you an individual case. The gay pub in central London, in Soho, says that they are going to allow their clients to eat McDonald's to be delivered into their pubs so that they can open it. Is that acceptable or not?
Well, I don't think it's acceptable to try to push the boundaries of these rules, and it's a matter for the courts to interpret the law.